This is a Renegade Media Network podcast.
Obviously, you guys know I prefer organizations that flow counter to the mainstream narrative, and I've got the perfect one to tell you about. That would be Texas Scorecard. They were founded back in 2015 by a former Ron Paul congressional press secretary. They are Texas-based, Texas-focused counter-culture media organization. How cool is this? They've got podcasts, videos, live programming, a really nice print edition. They've got guest commentaries, very popular daily email newsletter that will highlight the biggest stories of the day. You can actually trust these guys without the mainstream leftist spin put on much of the news we unfortunately see these days. Their mission: disrupt statism and reconstitute self-governance. They do not want a seat at the table. They want to get rid of the table. They are pro-citizen. They will be your one-stop shop for Texas politics and news. That is for damn sure. I actually mean that because lately I wanted to know some of the stuff that was going on here. I DM'd Texas Scorecard to find out what was going on. They serve those who are tired of being lied to by the mainstream media. That would be you. That would be me as well. They do not align with any party. They work hard to hold lawmakers on both sides of the aisle accountable. Their reporting was directly responsible for taking down the corrupt Republican Speaker of the House, Dennis Bonnen. And check this out, the coolest part of this: nonprofit, no paywalls. All of the reporting is always free. You can find them on any social media channel by searching Texas Scorecard, facebook.com/Texas Scorecard, Twitter @Texas Scorecard, and then they're on YouTube as well, youtube.com/Texas Scorecard. You can find their free daily newsletter. Sign up for it over at texasminute.com. Go check out Texas Scorecard. You will not be disappointed.
You are now listening to the Counterflow Podcast, a place for dissonant voices and unapproved opinions.
You get split in fucking half, but I call him the hologram graph. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Here is your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back once again to the Counterflow Podcast. I'm glad to have you here on another good week. This is a good one. I'm very fortunate to have the most based politician in the country on the show with me today. That would be Representative Anthony Sabatini out of Florida. A lot of you guys are familiar with him, I'm sure. Those of you who aren't, just the fact that you listen to this show, I'm pretty confident that you will be a fan of this guy. And we don't have enough like him, that's for sure. People on our side, the good guys, willing to use power against our enemies to fight the regime and all of the evil that encompasses the regime right now, and the stuff they're trying to push down from atop on all of us, not happening to Anthony, his district, his people. And I think you'll see that, and I think you're going to appreciate that. He is definitely not afraid to fight this evil that we've been witnessing. And I'm very thankful that he's got time for us. And I'm really thankful that there's people like this guy in elected office. We need more of them. We need more people, not only to fight the evil of the left, but to root out the rhinos on the right and push them out of the Republican Party for good. And Anthony is working on all of these things. He serves as a member of the Florida House of Representatives, representing District 32 in Central Florida. Glad to have him with us here today. Anthony Sabatini, welcome to the show, sir. How are you? Representative Anthony Sabatini, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Thanks for having me on, Buck.
Yeah, this is exciting for me. You're not in my state. I wish you were. I'm in Texas, and we're doing okay compared to you guys, but better than most. But for my audience that's not familiar with you, talk about exactly what you do down there in the free state of Florida.
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing Republicans can do, elected Republicans can do, is really hold their own party accountable, because there's amazing grassroots patriotic energy amongst the base, amongst the actual voting, working public that elect these politicians. But the zeal that animates the movement right now, and has animated it since Donald Trump got elected, or maybe even as far back as the Tea Party, I don't think is really shared as much with the elected officials. There's really a big disjunct. So what I would say I do more than anything else is try to hold the Republican leadership and establishment accountable, hold them to the platform and the promises and the expectations of what Republican voters want, because they're just totally out of step in most cases with their own constituents.
I won't put my lens on what you do as far as fighting the left so well. I want to let you articulate this. What's your philosophy regarding the right, the left, power, and the whole fight that's going on?
Sure. I mean, to be more specific, there's a lot of things the Republican Party needs to do, and they're just not doing them. So, I guess you could say, to encapsulate that, I just think the Republicans need to learn how to use power. That's why I always tell people the Republicans need to learn to use power. They need to, really get off their ass and step up and really use the power and the power that's given to them by voters. The Dems always do. The left always does. As soon as the left gets power, it is just out of control, pedal to the metal. And you know what? As much as the people on the right we complain about that, that's what they're doing. What their voters want them to do. They want them to use the power that they're given. And you look at what's happening right now with the COVID tyranny, and now they're trillions and trillions of dollars of debt they're racking up, new mandates, and I mean just insane stuff. Next will be gun control, and who knows what they're going to do. But that's what the left does. The Republicans don't do it. So I generally, focus on trying to put a spur, in the Republican caucus to get them moving on important issues like big tech censorship, election integrity, cutting down taxes, defunding the left, defunding the universities, things like that, standing up to the federal government that, the Republicans just are not doing. There's still this 1980s mindset amongst a lot of the Republican elected officials that is just like, well, I don't know what to do. So we're just going to cut large corporate tax. We're going to cut the large corporations' taxes this year and just be slightly against whatever the left is screaming about this week. That is generally the Republican formula for years. And it's a really stupid formula and doesn't really yield any victories for conservatism or protecting freedom, securing people's rights, and protecting the middle class. I think at the end of the day, the conservative message right now needs to be, the America First message is stopping the destruction of the middle class. We need more healthy, robust middle class of people who are independent minded, independently employed, just free people. And we're not moving towards that. We're moving in the direction of a hegemonic society where corporate power and government power is overbearing, and everyone just feels so impotent and lost in this tyrannical world we're living in. We really need to just stand up for the middle class and freedom and give people the tools they need. That's really the central concern of everything I'm interested in politics right now.
Is part of the reaction from your constituents, I would say, and people like Matt Gaetz, DeSantis, you seem to be leading this fight in a way that shows more backbone than a lot of Republicans have in the last decade or two, certainly. Does that inspire constituents of yours? Do they ever say like, hey, you seems like you're going too far? Are they more willing to fight themselves though? What's their reaction in general?
No, I mean, listen, you just named some figures like Gaetz and DeSantis that are wildly popular with the Republican Party, voters, and I am too. I mean, I get almost no blowback from my own constituents.
Good.
What we get blowback from is the Republican establishment. I mean, there are a lot of Republicans who are elected to do these things, focus on protecting the family, protecting a free and open economy, helping the middle class, doing all this great stuff. And they just don't. I mean, they don't do anything. They're like beholden to the special interests. And the good thing about DeSantis and Gaetz and me and Marjorie Taylor Greene is we're a mode of elected official that's becoming more popular and more plentiful. People that are act and operate independent of a lot of the special interests and are willing to stand up to the status quo and change the way of doing business and stand up to the radical left. And I'm seeing a lot more of that. But it's not, it's because the people are expecting more of their leaders. They're so tired of the Kevin McCarthy types.
Yeah.
And just the moderate Republican types and the do-nothings. And that's still a majority of the party. A lot of people think rhinos are like this minority of the party. It's like Cheney's a rhino, Kinziger's a rhino, Mitt Romney's a rhino. and then that's about it. No, it's like quite the opposite. Those guys are really vocal and extreme rhinos. I get it. But like most of the Republicans are rhinos. Like most of the elected officials are do nothing, play it safe, don't challenge the status quo, don't speak up, don't do anything, don't use your pulpit type officials. It's like that's the one bad thing about the focus on Cheney and Kinzinger is people think that's like, this small group that we need to like just lash. Where it's like, no, that's an extreme version of it, but about 60% of the Republican officials are total rhinos.
Do you get more pushback from those within the party, the rhino types, or people from the left?
From within the party, absolutely.
Wow.
Because you have to understand the Rhino Establishment, right, which is a majority of the congressmen, especially guys like Kevin McCarthy, they love the left. They love AOC. They love Pelosi because what happens is it helps them with fundraising, and it also really makes them feel that they're like being a tough constitutional conservative because they're not AOC. So if you're standing next to AOC as a Republican, you get to, appear as this really freedom-loving, based, awesome patriot. The problem is when a real conservative stands up, someone who truly loves our Constitution, loves freedom, doesn't give a damn about the left, loves the values of our party and the America First movement, it embarrasses the establishment guy, right? Because you expose them.
Mm-hmm.
Like on COVID tyranny, I fought the lockdowns, I fought the mask mandates, fighting the COVID vaccine nonsense, and now the corporate vaccine mandates. Most of the Republicans weren't. So like their constituents who are aware of like me and like what some of these conservatives are doing, they're like really disappointed and they actually hate their own guys because there's now a contrast point. So you see what I mean? So the establishment loves the left because the contrast makes them look great for their own constituents. But when they meet a real flag-waving conservative who's actually doing things, it embarrasses them.
Doing my research on you, it shows that your first elected representative position was in Eustis City, Florida. What was your time like serving there? And were you as much of a firebrand then as you are now?
Yes, I was actually. I didn't ever sought to be or mean to be. I was a naive voter, right? I thought all my elected officials were super cool conservative Republicans. I just thought most of the elected officials at any level were people who really believed in the basic principles of patriotism, freedom, law and order, the good society, protecting the family, religious liberty, just all the good stuff. I just thought that. And what I found is that when I got elected to a small town of 20,000 people, that even though the board was there's 4 of the 5 seats were held by Republicans, they were just complete and total rhinos. And so one of the first big issues that popped up was a basic issue of property rights. It was whether a person can have a chicken on their property, right? I mean, there was a black and white issue. Like, can you have a chicken as a pet? Should you have the right to have a chicken? It's such a simple, comical issue, but the Republicans were staunchly opposed to it. They just don't believe in property rights. It was, something could go wrong and these chickens aren't like dogs or cats. I mean, it's a comical example, but it was a basic black and white issue about property rights. Then the next issue was, should a man be able to sell his firearms, guns during the city street festival? Mm-hmm. Once again, Second Amendment, fundamental right, fundamental principle of society. Why would we disallow him? And it was the Republicans on the board that were trying to push him. So I threatened a lawsuit. I had to stick up for this guy, just like I had to stick up for the chicken owner who wanted a chicken on his property. Then the next was a radical, insane atheist group that wanted to come to the city commission and give a godless atheist prayer. And so I said, we can't disallow him from doing it, but we can give a God prayer. So I followed up with a Christian prayer, and that was a controversy. Then the next thing was Confederate monuments. And I put out statements defending the existence of Confederate monuments in public areas. And the Republicans fought me on that. So my experience on city commission was really formative because it was my first exposure up and close and personal to serving with rhinos who don't believe in tradition, they believe in abolishing history. They don't believe in property rights. They don't believe in the Second Amendment. They don't believe in low taxes and low regulation. They don't really believe in anything. They're just aimless people. It's not that they're liberal. People go, are the rhinos liberal? No, they're not liberal. They just have no beliefs at all. They're just principleless, unformed beings of nothingness. And they just float around with whatever's popular or whatever the winds of society tell them to do. And there's just a lot of that. So yeah, my time on city commission was extremely formative to my political beliefs and identity.
What advice would you give to someone looking to gain a position like you had in Eustis City, something a smaller town, 20,000, like you said, if people are thinking, well, I'd like to join this fight too and help keep my town the way it is, if not, if not make it better, and fight the left, if there's a movement within, what advice would you give someone that's interested in that?
First of all, I would definitely advise them to do it. That's the first question. A lot of people just think, well, I'm going to run for U.S. Senator. I'm going to run for Congress. And that's just crazy. It's like, dude, like get involved in your community in a way that you can actually get to know your community and the interests and really have the experience of public service, because it'll teach you a lot and it'll test you and make you a better patriot, conservative, whatever you want to put once you're involved. So first of all, I just tell people to get involved to begin with. And to win, it's really about knocking doors. I mean, if you're running for school board, county commission, city, whatever it be, a smaller thing, it's just knocking doors, looking voters right in the eye and winning their support. And what happens is once you've proven yourself and you have a record of doing the right thing and, serving the people, you build a base of support. It makes it easier to run for something higher. You've earned the trust of the people. You've earned volunteers who are going to help you because they believe in your message and your action, and it's helpful. So I tell people to do it all the time, and some people just don't. I mean, even right now, I'm running for Congress against people. None of the guys have ever run for office before, and that's great, but they've never been through the crucible of being in office. So, like, if you're looking at a guy like me, where I have the most traditionally defined conservative record in the state of Florida by a landslide at the state and local level, and I have positions on every single thing tested throughout all these different experiences, these different times since, Donald Trump got elected. We got elected the same year in 2016. It's hard to want to risk it on some guy that's just promising you he's going to be good when you have no idea if he is or not, versus a guy like me that has the record. So I tell people, just do it.
What's up, Counterflow audience? If you're listening to this show, obviously you're a person who cares about their liberty. You may even be one of these people that's kind of tired of waiting around for political change, tired of being upset by the same old from the LP, tired of all of this nonsense while you think, what should I really be doing? If you're ready to take matters into your own hands, then I want to tell you about a new community called the Nomad Network. The Nomad Network is the #1 community for liberty-minded people just like you and me who want to create freedom in their lifetime by focusing on the things that you can actually change: entrepreneurship, investment, and income mobility. The people over at the Nomad Network, Jason Stapleton, these guys are preaching how to actually make your life more free and better without having to join a political party and go through the same old motions year after year. Whether you have an existing business, looking to start one, or simply want to network with other like-minded people, the Nomad Network is the place for you. The best part is, obviously, everyone likes this. It's free to join. You hear me? Free to join. Go to www.nomadnetwork.app/buck right now to see what everyone is talking about. That is www.nomadnetwork.app/buck to get your free account today. See you there. Are there some effective ways that you've been able to fight against maybe your state legislature or get them to do things from your county level or a local level?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you got to hold your caucus, your party accountable. And that's the hard part, right? Most Republicans want to get in office and they say, well, I'm going to try to do the right thing, but I don't want to piss anybody off or, gain a negative opinion amongst my colleagues by, calling them out or pushing them or exposing them. But that's just wrong. It's selfish to do that. You have to serve your constituents by informing them of what's going on. So, if there are Republicans that are voting for higher taxes and, more COVID tyranny or whatever it be, gun control, bought and paid for by whatever special interest, big woke businesses, whatever it be.
Yeah.
I call them out. I call them out publicly on all my forms of social media. I let people know this person voted this. The caucus has failed to do this. It doesn't matter who it is, even if it's the governor. If he's not making the right decision, he needs to be held to task. He needs to be held out. That's what your constituents want. They respect you for being a leader in the party and actually holding people accountable, not just sitting there quietly, not using your pulpit, not talking out loud. I have the most conservative voting record, and I would say, independent kind of reformist voting record, but that's not enough. It's not enough to just vote the right way. You have to use your pulpit and you have to use every ounce of your being to exert power on the party to hold them accountable, because they're not. Who's going to hold them accountable? You think the liberal media is going to hold them accountable? Nobody's going to hold the Republican Party accountable except for the grassroots. And the grassroots needs officials that they can team up with and be educated by to a degree.
So then if voters are thinking, should I join an actual political party? Do I need to register as this or that just to support Anthony Sabatini or Ron DeSantis? How important is actual membership in a political party?
I think it's extremely important. Also depends on the state. Here in Florida, we have closed primaries. So these people that say, well, I don't like the Republican Party, they're not based enough, America First enough, conservative enough, whatever, there's crooks in there. What they're doing is they're just making it worse, because they're leaving the party and they're not helping keep it accountable. They're giving it to the establishment. So they got to get inside the party, because we have closed primary systems. So the only way you're going to fix the party and the system is by working from within it. Outside, you just get kind of blown off. No one cares. So I tell everyone, join the Republican Party. You have the Communist Party. The Democrats are basically the Communist Party now, and you have the Republican Party, which is, supposed to be the conservative party, but it's a little bit everything, and it's kind of crazy, and it's something you could work within to make better to save our country. But the Democrat Party is just off the rails. So people should definitely join the Republican Party and work to improve it.
Is fighting the political power there in Florida that Disney holds something that must be done from where you're sitting?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Disney is the most left-wing and corrupt large business in the state of Florida by a landslide. Very anti-family, very anti-borders, very anti, just Republican, Republicanism, like a small R republic. They don't believe in self-governing societies. They love the idea of technocracy. They just did a great documentary on Fauci. And, they are now at the point where they're trying to basically dictate every aspect of their employees' lives, mandating the COVID vaccine and all this stuff. They're just basically tyrants, and they need to be brought to heel. And the way you do that is by stop doing them favors. Stop cutting this giant global woke company's taxes. Why are you giving them the tax cuts that you can afford as a state, as opposed to the middle class families and small businesses? So, they're bad. They're a pernicious influence. They're not a good thing. And we need to really start working at awarding and helping our own people, patriotic, good, working Americans, not these giant globalist corporations.
Another thing I've heard you talk about that I like a lot, an issue I see is a lot of conservatives get so excited when their young, beautiful kids go off to universities. And it seems like 4 years later, they can't believe, well, now my kids hate me and they hate what I represent, and I thought I raised a good kid. And you see the university system is basically an indoctrination camp very often for wokeness. What's a way that people on the right can fight that?
Well, I think the best thing they can do is start defunding the most radical parts of the university system. I mean, these insane College of Liberal Arts and Sciences that are just nothing but political indoctrination centers, and they have no academic merit. They have to be shut down. These professors are the enemy. The universities are the enemy. Their goal is a borderless, completely destroyed, fragmented American identity that is basically a socialist haven like most of the world. And it's disgusting. They're horrible. They're bad people. And we are subsidizing it. We're subsidizing this university system that's so sick and awful. Why are we doing that? We should be defunding them and subsidizing a traditional education like Hillsdale College. Make a Hillsdale College in Florida, pay for it with state dollars, subsidize it, and teach objective truth, the history, lessons of Western history, emphasize, the objective goods like family and success, and just the dignity of American history, and not this garbage that you read and hear about on university campuses. They should just be totally shut down. And there's no Republicans talking about it because, most of them are the products of the university system. I mean, I am, but I have no allegiance to it or respect for the university system. But they're so beholden to them that they're not willing to hold them accountable. And that's shameful. We just had these horrible Republicans that are elected that are out of step with their own party.
Yeah.
And even though they're a majority of the elected officials, they represent an extreme minority within the voting base, and they just need to be exposed.
What's your military experience?
So I'm a captain in the Florida Army National Guard. I've been an officer for coming up on 9 years, 13 years if you include my cadet time as an undergraduate. And just very proud to serve in the Florida Army National Guard. I'm an infantry officer. Haven't deployed because I commissioned in 2013 is when I finished BOLIC. So we were kind of done in terms of the Florida National Guard with combat deployments. We've deployed once since then. And it's been really more of a training mission. So I've done all my stuff stateside. I've done a lot of domestic work. I've done 5 hurricanes, some civil unrest things. COVID was a big National Guard mission, but it's been great. Really, really enjoyed it.
Is the leadership within that organization better than the leadership that we see now in the U.S. military with the people at the very top?
Well, I mean, you got to remember the National Guard is part of the DoD. They're part of the Joint Chief of Staff, so it's all the same shared leadership. But to answer it this way, I have enormous respect for the leadership in the Florida Army National Guard. They're very good, patriotic people who have the interests of the soldiers at heart. What you see sometimes in Washington and the Joint Chiefs isn't always reflective of the Florida Army National Guard.
Good, because it seems at the broader, bigger level up at the top, there's some type of infiltration that's happened there as well, just like it's happened with the universities. Have you seen that?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm in the state legislature, so I'm not intimately as involved as some of these guys are who are on like the Armed Services Committee, but yeah.
What battles and victories are you most proud of? Because there's a lot that get you a lot of media hype, and I love watching you on CNN, but what are you most proud of that you've done politically?
Well, the thing I'm most proud of right now is I was the sole elected guy. I mean, I represent the voices of, I don't think anybody, I'm not going to brag, but I think I represent the traditional Republican voter 10 times more than most Republican officials. They completely ignore and actually fight back against their own voters. They push back against the grassroots and the voters, whereas I try to champion what they believe in. What I'm most proud of is being the guy for the last 3 or 4 months that has been beating the drum on calling a special session to ban private sector vaccine mandates for employees. And I did it for months and months and months. And even the governor was unwilling to do anything. And eventually the governor, saw the pressure and 2 weeks ago called a special session. Now, I don't know if what we want to pass ideally is going to pass. The ideal version of it is going to pass. We'll find out soon. But just to have it get called, even though every single Republican, every Rhino in the entire House or Senate was unwilling to even speak publicly about the topic. They weren't even offering words of support to the people being fired from their jobs. It was sick and wrong. And to get to be a part of the movement to get the governor to call a special session was a huge victory. I've had a lot of victories. I've had 5 of my bills signed into law. I've done a lot of stuff on the grassroots level. I've forced a lot of votes and things on the legislature to pay attention to things that they did not want to pay attention to. And I've equipped voters with ways to hold their party accountable. Those are really the biggest victories.
I want to read a tweet from you, and this touches upon the topic you just mentioned. No more defense. We need offense. Issuing statements and lawsuits is not enough. Florida and every Republican state must nullify Biden's OSHA vaccine mandate now. And I love this part. Any federal agent implementing them in our state must be arrested on the spot and prosecuted under law. #no mandates. Explain that a little bit further, outside of the limitations that Twitter gives you.
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's common sense. I don't know how you want me to break that down anymore. The states just need to draw a line in the sand. They need to nullify federal law. They need to cut all ties with as much of the federal government as possible. And they need to arrest and prosecute federal officials that seek to enforce unconstitutional federal mandates and laws here in the state of Florida. There's just no way to simplify that.
Yeah. Well done then. Do you get pushback from people saying, because I hear this within Libertarianism, within the Republican Party, but they still have, you can't trample on the rights of these private businesses to have their mandate if that's what they want to do. And it's often, you hear that from people, and I want to tell them, you're jumping on your own principles, and it's siding with the regime. So when your principles side with the regime, maybe you need to question your principles. But how do you answer that criticism?
Well, it's a bad faith argument. That's an argument made exclusively from conservatives. real conservatives are interested in conserving. And what they're trying to conserve is the autonomy and liberty of everyday working Floridians to make their own decisions and live their own lives, be their own people, and just be in charge and like not be, effing babysat and become the product of a nanny state. So that's the argument made by conservatives. It's not the argument made by the left. Or rhinos. They don't care about that argument, but they're using the argument in bad faith to try to fight back. So all of a sudden, the radical left, which wants hundreds of thousands of new regulation on every business, big and small, are now saying that, we have to pay attention to the free market and let these big businesses mandate vaccines. It's a fake argument. It's a bad faith argument. So really, it's not worth responding to because the people making it are playing a game and they're also stupid. So they're not worth responding to. You shouldn't argue with a stupid person. But I will tell you, for those who are duped into thinking that's a real argument, I would just say that's insane. I mean, if you really believe you're worshiping at the altar of big business to the point where you're going to allow them to basically tell every citizen who works at their giant corporations that they have to reveal all their personal health information and give up their own personal decision-making, then what's the role of a government? I mean, what's the point of government? Why not just put the corporations in charge of everything? It's just kind of a creepy mentality. That's why it's a bad faith argument. They don't really believe that. They don't really think that big corporations should be completely and totally unchecked. They just say that to give some kind of counterpoint.
The best part about having PalomaVerdeCBD.com as a sponsor is not even that the products are amazing, because they are. That's not even the best part. It's once you order these products and use them over and over, because I'm telling you that you're supporting a truly good couple, the people behind PalomaVerdeCBD.com, Carlos and Vanessa out of San Antonio, very wonderful people, hardworking, and very much like-minded. And they're providing you these wonderful products, the mint CBD tinctures. Check this out, the sleep bundle. I know sometimes some of you have issues sleeping. It's very common these days. You won't once you buy their sleep bundle. They've got the CBD gummies, of course. They've got soft gels, salve sticks. I've ranted and raved many times about the cool menthol sports cream. Those of you guys and ladies that work out and lift and you get a little sore, I'm telling you, this is the absolute best sports cream I've ever used. And you've heard it many times, but I can't brag enough on their pet products, the CBD dog chews and the pet CBD tinctures. Both of my French bulldogs, George and Lux, both use these products. They may not know they use them, but I can tell you, Lux is the old one. He used to kind of waddle around like a little old man French bulldog. I put the CBD tinctures on his food every morning, and now he can actually keep up with his younger brother George, who darts around the yard and chases squirrels. But I put these CBD dog chews and the pet tinctures in their food every morning and every evening. You will not be sorry if you give these guys business. Help out your sleep, your muscles, your anxiety. They've got stuff for that, of course, and your pets. Everything here is wonderful and good, as are the people behind the business. And of course, since they support this show and you listen to this show, you get 25% off your entire order when you type in promo code BUCK. That's me, of course, BUCK, B-U-C-K, at checkout. Get you 25% off of your order when you go over to PalomaVerdeCBD.com. Please give these great people some business. You will not be sorry. And you're helping out the Counterflow podcast. You're helping us keep the lights on, as they say. That's PalomaVerdeCBD.com, promo code BUCK. Get you 25% off. Let's get back to the show. What are your thoughts on libertarianism?
Libertarianism is the heart and soul of the Republican Party, like Ronald Reagan said. But the question is, what is libertarianism? Because now it's been defined as a stupid, weird, creepy ideology that's just like a regime ideology. It's protecting everything the regime does. If you look at like the big L libertarians, the members of the Libertarian Party, they were making excuses for vaccine mandates. I mean, those people are just so out of touch. It's just embarrassing. I won't even speak to them. They're so dumb. They're just I guess people call them left-wing libertarians, but like they just don't really stand for liberty. Like their freedom liberty issue is like the correct use of pronouns, and it's like most of them, they're idiots. Real libertarianism, if you're trying to give a real, fair interpretation of it, it's just is the idea that liberty is a per se good. It is intrinsically good, not good because it yields material outcomes and things in society, but because the exercise of liberty is in itself, in accordance with human nature and more fulfilling and makes people, it basically is the good life. It's a good worth pursuing. Just being free and being able to make your own decisions. I actually do believe that. I mean, I'm a libertarian in that sense. But you have to, in order to believe that and to further that goal of autonomy and liberty, you have to understand that the threats to liberty are not just coming from a government. They're also coming from the culture or business or whatever. And you have to basically use power, political power, to destroy or cancel those threats to liberty. And libertarianism, as stupidly defined, like the Libertarian Party and like what gets called libertarian today, has no understanding of those threats and doesn't care whatsoever. They don't understand like the breakdown of the American family yields to socialism. They just think, oh no, like if you want everyone to just be promiscuous and do drugs or whatever, that's good. That's libertinism. They don't know the difference between libertinism and libertarianism. And so that's why I just stay away from the word now because it's so confused. Yeah. Also, and this is a quick, small side, libertarianism also is, funny enough, weird modern parlance now for like it means moderate. I swear to God, like I've heard people say this. I was at a bar once with a guy, and I was brought up that I was the keynote speaker for the Republican Party. He was sitting there. It was me and my wife, and he was sitting next to us. And he goes, "Oh, I'm not really very conservative. I'm not really a big Republican. I'm more libertarian." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! Like he's actually legit libertarian." I don't meet those people that very often. And so I go, "What do you think about Rand Paul?" I'm endorsed by Rand Paul, who's the most libertarian member, like really traditionally defined libertarian. And so I wanted to tell him, "Hey, I'm endorsed by Rand Paul. Isn't that great?" And he goes, No, I don't like Rand Paul. He goes, "I'm more like a Mitt Romney, John McCain guy."
Oh, wow.
Yes. And it was funny. Now my wife started like choking up her food laughing, and like, it's funny, but like what libertarians become like for a lot of liberals and moderate rhinos is that it's a way of saying like, oh, well, I just don't want to be called racist or like Neanderthal or whatever. So like I'm libertarian. It's like a weird pretext to mean I'm not conservative. It's strange.
Yes.
But I've witnessed it multiple times.
There's been a talking point from many of them to say, well, we're neither right nor left. We're just libertarian. And it's this kind of chicken shit way to say like, don't hate me because of what those people do. Don't hate me because of what they do. I'm just kind of the good parts from each side. I'm right in the middle.
That's right. And what it also is they don't think that you know what the word libertarian means. Like they don't think you have a formulaic conception of like the founding fathers were libertarian, depending on how you want to define it. I mean, traditional libertarian, they were very libertarian, not libertine, but libertarian. And like they don't know that. So they just think, that's a crazy bunch of racist white guys. Like they can't possibly be libertarian. I don't know. I just don't. They don't get it. They don't know the meaning. But I've witnessed this multiple times, and hearing a guy say, "No, I don't like Rand Paul. I'm a Mitt Romney libertarian."
Right.
The most funny thing I've ever heard in my life. But
how important was Donald Trump getting elected for politics at large?
Extremely important. I mean, it's started turning of a page. It's like a new epoch. I really do believe in American politics. It's the quickest, fastest, hardest rise of populism in 50 years, way bigger than Goldwater, and I would say slightly bigger than even the Tea Party in terms of ushering a wave of populism. And we're still living it. In fact, we're just starting it. People think, oh, it was like Trump era is over. No, like Trump era is just starting. This is now that he's out of office, his power has increased over the party even more. And he's got something like a 98% approval rating with Republicans. So he's now becoming the kingmaker, and he's choosing who's going to represent the brand and who's going to lead the party. And so, just like Julius Caesar, I mean, he wasn't in power that long, but his era was much longer than his life. Trump definitely changed American politics and reoriented the parties in a good, meaningful way. And we're going to start seeing some big changes. But I think it was a great thing because he basically was able to make concrete people's anger at the institutions. Even during the Tea Party era, people really weren't able to put their thumb on the fact that the whole system was wrong.
Yes,
I mean, he was
right.
able to put into a few key phrases like draining the swamp, fighting the deep state, America first, key concepts that were the mentality in the Tea Party, but just they weren't able to be fully developed until later on.
Is the future of the Republican Party, in your mind, going to be the MAGA movement, the America First movement, and people, rising stars like yourself and MTG and so on?
Is the America First movement
Is the Republican Party, is that the future of the party, the populist right? You think so?
Yeah. I mean, there's times it feels like it's coming much quicker and sometimes it's going slower, but the Republican Party is becoming the American First Party. Some would say it already is. I'm more suspect. I'm very, very suspect of the grifters and the people who are high up in the party that absolutely hate the base, hate Donald Trump, hate us, hate me, who are still in major positions of power, major positions. There's a lot of that. And so until that's gone, we're in a tough spot. But anyways, I do believe that. It is going to happen. It's just happening slower than expected.
As far as the COVID tyranny, that's really one of the biggest issues in the world, sadly enough, right now, but certainly in America. I think the people on the right at some point felt pressured to give in to a lot of this and wear the mask all the time and shut their businesses down. It felt like because of people like you, because of people like Ron DeSantis, there became a surge within the grassroots on the right to say, you know what? No, I'm not wearing this mask. You know what? If I don't want to take this medicine, I'm not going to take it. Did you feel that you guys led some of that energy and gave?
Absolutely. I mean, Florida definitely played a major role. But one thing I will tell you, even though I was against 100% out the gate, publicly addressing, vocal against the lockdowns from day one, minute one, I love our governor. I support our governor, but it took him 6 weeks to get there. I was against it all from day one, mask mandates, all of it. I just knew it. The writing was on the wall. I will tell you, it wasn't DeSantis. It wasn't me. It wasn't anybody in the elected field that changed the mentality of what was going on. It was actually just the grassroots. So like Shelley Luther, the woman who owned the barber store and barbershop or hair salon rather, in Dallas that was arrested, those kind of people, once they were really standing up to the regime, that's what changed the mentality and caused the massive amounts of endings of the lockdowns, because the politicians were just covering their own ass and they weren't willing to stand up and challenge the status quo. It was the people themselves that had things to lose that were standing up. We need a lot more of that.
Yeah, no kidding. Does it feel at all? I mean, maybe you're biased because you are in such a great state. I am as well, and I feel it a little bit. Does it feel like the pendulum is starting to slowly swing back towards the right with just the populace in general?
Do the left as what to the populace? You said?
If it feels to me, maybe I'm biased, recency bias because of the elections in Virginia. It feels like the pendulum. It's for so long. It's been swinging to the left nonstop, and we're almost at this point that it feels like it's become too crazy and the pendulum is starting to swing back to the right. Does it feel that way to you at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Biden's presidency is over. I think really, I mean, Democrats amongst the ranks are all scurrying away now from him. They're very nervous. So yeah, I mean, I think they're really moving away from him. And, at this point, they're just going to shift to playing defense up until 2022. We'll see what happens. We don't know 100%, but they're definitely scurrying. They're freaked out and populism is winning.
Yes. Well, speaking of that 2022, talk about what you're running for and your campaign there.
Sure. So I'm running for U.S. Congress, District 7. It's a seat in North Orlando that is very slightly Democrat, has a Democratic advantage, but with the way that's happening, we could easily flip it. But more importantly, there's massive redistricting about to happen. So the seat's going to be looking a lot better for us as Republicans in the state of Florida, most likely. So I'm running and I'm the front runner in the race. I got some major endorsements from General Michael Flynn, Senator Rand Paul, Representative Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, you name it, Madison Cawthorn, just a whole bunch of different people. And just major support, fundraised a lot, and just picking up steam and had a great meeting with Donald Trump this week. So I think we're going to be in Congress next year to try to help rebuild what's left of it.
Who are your mentors?
You mean like a literal mentor, like one-on-one?
Yeah, who inspires you?
I look to.
Both.
Well, I mean, for people that inspire me, I would have to say, as cheesy as it sounds, probably. I mean, it sounds cheesy to some, but like just some of the politicians I think are actually doing a good job. Like Donald Trump and Rand Paul and Matt Gaetz and Paul Gosar. I think those are all really good guys I look to. But also historic figures that are really strong conservatives back when it wasn't even cool, right? So like Jesse Helms, William F. Buckley, the younger William F. Buckley, people in the movement who fought for what they believed in and were right to do so. Barry Goldwater. When I was younger, my role models were more like intellectual writers and everything else, but now it's more political. I lived more of a political life than I've ever lived. I didn't expect to get into politics, by the way. I wanted to either be a historian or professor. I'm a lawyer. I was very interested in a bunch of different stuff, philosophy and theater and history, but I got sucked into politics after living in a place that was very liberal and being surrounded by people who've had their brains destroyed by progressivism. And that's what got me involved. So, I look up and consider my mentors, figures of history, but also some of the good politicians, the few good politicians we have today that, some of them I know personally.
All right. Well, plug away. We'll get you out of here. Anything you'd like to plug, your website, your social media presence, any of that?
Sure. SabatiniForCongress.com is my website. And, they can find me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Getter, whatever you want. I'm on there. Telegram, I'm on there at Sabatini, Sabatini.
Excellent. Anthony Sabatini, thank you for being here with us.
Thanks, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Good to be back on. Take care.
I told you guys would enjoy Anthony Sabatini. What a refreshing voice we need. Like I said up top, we need a lot more people like him. And I hope maybe he's inspired some of you guys to maybe work your way up into positions of power, because we need good people in positions of power to fight the evil people, because the positions of power are going to be there. That's not going away. So the more good people we can get that aren't afraid to use that power to crush our enemies, the more of that, the better. So thank you once again, Representative Sabatini, for coming on. Let me tell you guys really quickly, I'd never talk much about the Patreon page for this show because I'm not good at trying to sell myself, but I do realize I've now achieved a sizable audience, a lot more than I used to have, and I never talk about this. So if you do find value in this product that I put out weekly, and sometimes, like coming up, some bonus episodes coming, so not just weekly, but at least weekly, we can say, if you find value in it, I do have a Patreon where all you have to do is, the minimum's $1. So if you can find it in your heart to give and help this show keep going, and I do have ads that I get revenue from, but everything that happens with the production and the video and all of the stuff for this show, it does cost money. And so I can promise you this, everything that you give via Patreon goes back into this show. And to do that, it's patreon.com/counterflow. That's Patreon, patreon.com/counterflow. And like I said, you can give as little as $1 or as much as you want. So I really do appreciate those of you who've been supporting members of mine for some time now. It's nice. It really is nice. So thank you guys. And of course, y'all have helped me grow the YouTube page. Thank you so much for doing that. If you haven't done that, just give us a subscription on the YouTube page. That's free. Obviously, you just type in Counterflow with Buck Johnson, hit the subscribe button, and you'll be notified when all of the content that my boy Justin puts out on the YouTube page, you'll be notified when that happens. You'll be notified of the live streams that we do and all of that kind of good stuff. So do that. The website, counterflowpodcast.com. Thank you guys so much for all the feedback you give me and the support. I truly appreciate it. Thank you guys. And until next week, have a good one.
You get split in fucking half, but I call him the hologram brass. but I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid, and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus, but I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Counterflow podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.
This has been the Counterflow Podcast, a part of the Renegade Media Network.